In this video, I'm going to be talking about equations of lines and modeling. So we've already learned how to graph equations three different ways. We've got plotting points, we've got using two special points which we call the intercepts, or we call the graphing using the intercept method. And then our easiest one most of the time is going to be using the slope-intercept method. And so here it says, and by the way, we've got two equations so far that you ought to know. The first one is the slope formula, which we use when we have 2 points and we need to find the slope of a line. And then the other one is slope-intercept form of an equation, which we basically use for graphing by picking out the slope and the intercept, the y-intercept. We're able to quickly graph a line. So in this section, we'll look at one more equation that you need to learn, and we'll talk about what it's for. Why do we have another equation? So on number 1 here, it says find the slope and y-intercept, and then write the slope-intercept equation for the line. So we need to find the slope. We know how to do that. We're going to go ahead and write slope, and we know it's rise over run, and we need to find 2 points on the graph to identify the slope. So let's do that. So you could have picked 2 different points, but you should still get the same slope. So again, I go from left to right. So the rise here, we're going to go down 2, so that's -2, over the run, which is 3. Our slope, therefore, is -2/3. Now the y-intercept's pretty easy to see. It's just where our line crosses the y-axis. That's the point 0, 1. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to B. And actually, this is one I hope you already know what the slope is just by looking at it. The slope. Oh, you know what? I was going to mention one other thing on part A. If you actually write down the slope-intercept form, I forgot to write the equation. We know M and we know B now, so we know M stands for slope, and B is just the y, or the y value of the y-intercept, and so we're just going to plug those numbers in. So y equals -2/3 x plus 1. So we had to find the slope and the y-intercept, and then we used those to graph the line. I forgot about graphing the line, but we've done it now. Let's look at B. So here the slope is 0. Actually, we're supposed to write the equation of the line, and hopefully you know that's one of our special cases. It's y equals -2. Now there's another way you could do this. We said the slope is 0. Notice the y-intercept here is going to be 0, -2. That's just this point here. And so now you could write the equation like I did before, write y equals mx plus b and plug in what you have here. And notice 0x is 0, so you do get y equals -2. All right, so let's move on to number 2. It says write the slope-intercept equation for the line having the indicated slope and y-intercept. So, by the way, writing the equation of a line is quite easy if you know the slope and the y-intercept, just like it's easy to graph a line given those 2 pieces of information. So in 2a here, all I have to do is write y equals mx plus b. That's the slope-intercept form of an equation. Here our slope is 3/5, and our y-intercept is 0, 2. So it's going to be y equals 3/5 x plus 2. Again, 2 is just our b value, and that's what goes here. All right, let's move on to the next one, and we'll do the same thing. Notice, you got to be careful there. You might have thought, oh, the 1/2 must be the slope, but it's not. So just be careful. So usually when you're supposed to write the equation of a line, they don't give you an easy one like this. But if you do have the y-intercept and the slope, it's this easy to write the equation of the line. Well, what if you're not given the y-intercept? Well, let's move on to the next slide and talk about that. So here it says the point-slope form of a line, so that's our new form that we haven't learned yet, is used to write an equation for a line. So that's important. You want to know what it's used for. In the past, we had the slope formula. We could find the slope given 2 points. We had slope-intercept form. That's what we used mainly for graphing, because we could use the slope or the y-intercept and the slope to easily graph the line. So slope-intercept form is basically used for graphing most of the time. And then point-slope form is what we use when you give us information and we want to use that information to write an equation. So we're kind of going backwards here. So it's called the point-slope equation, and notice what you need to use it. Well, it says if m is the slope of a line, I'm right here, if m is the slope of a line and x sub 1, y sub 1 is a point on the line, then a point-slope equation for the line is y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1. And so this is our point-slope equation. This is what we use to write the equation of a line. And what do we need to be able to use it? The slope and 1 point on the line. That's why we call it point-slope equation. I need a point and a slope to write an equation. All right, so let's move on down to the bottom here now. It says write the slope-intercept form of the line that passes through the given point and has the given slope. Begin by writing a point-slope equation for the given information. And in fact, that's how we normally start. We use the point-slope equation to write an equation of the line. But you'll notice the form is kind of weird, and so we actually solve it for y, and that gives us the slope-intercept form, which ultimately is the form of our answer. All right, so what I would do if I were doing this problem is I would begin by writing out the point-slope equation. And then I would call this point x sub 1, y sub 1. That's the given point. And now we're just going to basically plug and chug. We're going to plug the numbers in and we're going to simplify, solve for y. So let's go ahead and plug and chug here. So it'll be y minus 1 equals the slope, which is negative 2 times x minus, and notice x sub 1, that's the x value of our point, that's negative 5. So I've got some simplifying to do. So notice right now I have a point-slope equation. But again, it's not all that useful. It's kind of messy. And so let's clean it up and solve for y and put it in slope-intercept form. So we get y minus 1 is equal to negative 2x, or negative 2 times x plus 5. So notice subtracted negative 5, I'm going to change that to addition. And then I'm going to go ahead and distribute on the right side. I'll get negative 2x minus 10. And then I need to add 1 to both sides. And I end up with negative 2x minus 9. Now I would encourage you to try B and see if you can do it. All right, so here's the point-slope equation. And 3, 7 is my point, x sub 1, y sub 1. So we'll plug in the numbers here. We get y minus 7 is equal to our slope, 2/9, times the quantity x minus 3. And so now notice it'll be 2/9 x. Now the only thing is I've got to multiply 2/9 times 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do my work up here. You're going to get, and you want to write it as 3 over 1, and then we're just going to multiply across. We get 6/9, which is 2/3. So it's 2/9 x minus 2/3. Now we're going to add 7 to both sides. And again, we got a little arithmetic to do here. We're adding negative 2/3 and 7. Notice I'm writing 7 over 1. And hopefully you recall we need a common denominator to add fractions or subtract them. So I would change 7 over 1 to 21/3. Basically, all I'm doing is multiplying the denominator by 3 to get the denominator that I need. And then 7 times 3 is 21. Notice 21 over 3 is still 7. So 21 and negative 2 is 19. We get 19/3. And so our final answer is y equals 2/9 plus 19/3. All right, let's move on to number 4. So it says write the slope-intercept equation for the line passing through the points 8, -1 and 4, 3. Now I would encourage you to see if you can figure this one out. You actually have all the skills you need to do this one. It's just we haven't actually done one just like this yet. So I just want you to, the first thing you ought to think about doing is writing down the formula, and then think about what you need to use the point slope equation, which is what I just wrote down. I need a point, and I need the slope of this line. Once you have that, you should be able to do the problem. All right, so I love this problem because you use all three equations. First of all, or formulas, the slope formula is going to be needed to find the slope of the line that goes through these 2 points. So we'll call our 2 points x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. And let's go ahead and plug those numbers in. We get 3 minus -1 over 4 minus 8. That's going to give us 4 over -4, which is -1. Now, the thing is, at this point, you have a choice. You can use either of the points, because you only need one, with your slope. I'm going to keep it simple and use 4, 3, because 4 and 3 are both positive. So we're going to use m equals -1, and our given point, x sub 1, y sub 1, we're going to use 4, 3. So it'll be y minus 3 is equal to our slope, which is -1, times x minus 4. And I'm going to go ahead and distribute on the right. We'll get a minus 1x, or minus x. -1 times a -4 is a plus 4. And all we have to do is add 3 to both sides. We get y is equal to minus x plus 7. And so that's going to be our final answer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here, and I'll do a second part.